Have you ever heard of a place where an entire village of men packed up their belongings and ran away, leaving women and children behind, all because of one terrifying belief? This is not a legend. This is not a campfire tale. This happened in a real village in Kasiguda, Telangana, India. And the reason was fear of a female ghost. Kasiguda was a quiet little hamlet, surrounded by dusty roads, scattered huts, and the endless green of fields. Around 50 families lived there. Life was simple but harsh. Electricity was weak, nights were dark, and silence after sunset was heavy. And then the deaths began. In just 3 months, 3 men died. One of jaundice, another of typhoid, and one in a strange bike accident on a lonely road. To an outsider, these could be explained. But in the village, whispers turned those deaths into something darker. The whispers said, "It is a woman's spirit. She hunts only men. She has come to take them." Soon, fear spread like a fire that no one could put out. At night, villagers swore they heard crying, a woman's cry, carried in the wind. Some claimed they saw her, a figure in white, standing at the edge of the fields, her long hair covering her face, her hand pale as ash. One old man said, trembling, "I saw her fingers on my door, scratching in the dark." The rumor was always the same. She wanted men. Only men. Women were safe. Children were safe. But husbands, brothers, sons, if they stayed in Kasiguda after dark, they would be taken. What happened next was almost unbelievable. One by one, the men fled. They locked their houses, kissed their wives and children goodbye, and disappeared into neighboring towns. At night, the village became eerie, streets empty, huts half shut, the sound of crickets mixed with the uneasy silence of a place abandoned by its own protectors. Imagine it, a village full of women and children, huddled indoors, while shadows stretched across the empty roads, and every sound felt like her steps. Not everyone believed at first. A few men tried to stay. They thought courage could defeat fear. But courage did not last. One evening, 3 men sat together on a veranda, refusing to run. The lantern burned low. Suddenly, the flame flickered and died. The night turned heavy. They swore they heard footsteps on dry leaves. When they shone a torch toward the fields, they saw something pale, a woman's outline, motionless, staring. The next morning, 2 of those men had left the village. The third? He refused to speak of what he saw. He packed his bags the following night and never came back. As days passed, Kasiguda felt cursed. Women cried as their husbands left. Children asked why their fathers had abandoned them. And always the same answer: because she is here. Because the ghost is hunting. No man dared to walk alone at night. Some even refused to go out in the daytime, afraid her shadow would follow them. But the fear only grew when the villagers began telling stories. A boy swore he saw her face reflected in the well water, white skin, hollow eyes, and lips that moved though no sound came out. A woman claimed that at midnight, she heard a knock at her door. When she opened it, there was no one, but the dirt outside showed the imprint of bare feet, small, delicate, but not human. One widow, sitting outside her home, said she saw a long shadow crawl across the wall, though nothing was there to cast it. And then, there were the dreams. Men who stayed even for a short time spoke of nightmares of suffocation, as if someone pressed invisible hands around their necks while they slept. Some woke up gasping, swearing they smelled jasmine flowers, though none grew nearby. In Indian folklore, jasmine is often linked with female spirits. By the second month, Kasiguda was almost a ghost village itself. Men were gone. Shops closed early. The air smelled of incense because every house lit sticks and candles to chase away evil. Women whispered prayers while children cried in the night. And all the while, the story spread. She comes only for men. She kills them, strangles them, takes them away. Finally, outsiders heard about the panic. Rationalists, skeptics, people who fight against superstition arrived at Kasiguda. They expected silly rumors. But what they saw chilled even them. An entire community lived in paralyzing fear. Men really had fled. The women left behind looked tired, haunted, desperate. The visitors set up cameras, waiting for evidence. They found nothing supernatural. But the fear remained, so real it clung to every wall. They learned that a priest had visited earlier, demanding money, goats, chickens, even 70,000 rupees to cleanse the spirit. He fed the fear, made it worse, took what he could from the poor. The rationalists exposed him. They told the villagers the deaths were disease, accident, coincidence, not ghosts. Slowly, some men returned. But not all. For months, Kasiguda carried a scar, of nights when no man dared to stay, of days when death wore the shape of a woman in white. Even today, the story is whispered in Telangana. Some say the ghost was never real. Some say she still waits in the fields, her eyes fixed on men who dare to laugh at her story. Some say that when the wind is heavy and the night too quiet, you can hear her cry, soft, broken, hungry. I wasn't there. But imagine yourself in that village. Imagine stepping outside your hut at midnight, and the only sound is your own heartbeat. Imagine hearing a woman sob from the trees when no one should be there. Imagine knowing your father, your brother, your husband may not come home again because something in the dark wants them. Would you dare to stay? Or would you run, like all the men of Kasiguda once did? Because sometimes, it is not the ghost that makes the horror. It is the silence she leaves behind. And in Kasiguda, that silence was more terrifying than death. The village was real. The fear was real. The men did flee. The deaths were documented. Whether the ghost was real, that, my friends, is for you to decide.